And one of the reasons we have the most secure border in the history of the nation right now is because of President Trump's executive orders and his leadership. 2, the men and women of Border Patrol who stand on that line enforcing law. And 3, the consequences. Over 1,000 ICE teams are on the streets every day. We're showing the whole world, if you got by, if you get by, we're looking for you. And that stops many, many people from using their entire life savings, put in the hands of criminal cartels to take that dangerous journey. The actions of ICE is one of the reasons we had the most secure border in history of this nation.
Violent symbolism. Threats steal the show at the nationwide No Kings protest. Many of you have already seen this video. It's from the DHS. It's from a No Kings liberal. This is not Antifa. This is not some fringe extremist. This is mainstream liberal protest in daylight on a microphone. Listen to this.
You gotta grab a gun. We gotta turn around the guns on this fascist system. These ICE agents gotta get shot and wiped out.
All right, today we're going to talk about how we can find out and how much we can find out.
So this is DHS pointing out at a Chicago No Kings rally, this man called for ICE agents to be shot. We've heard reports out of Oregon and Illinois that local police are collecting evidence to criminally charge and arrest federal agents. In California, Newsom says, take your mask off, otherwise you will be criminally charged. Misdemeanor starting January 1st. And a Chicago judge says ICE agents can be arrested at courthouses because this one crime is now protected. Well, I've got a lot to ask about this because I'm concerned about the escalation. We're going to bring in, we've got Tom Homan. Let me fix that. There we go. Tom Homan will be joining us. Let's get it going. Pull it up. We are currently
DHS
loading.
agents can be arrested, and Trump wins on right to deploy.
We pulled you in. We can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Cool.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, actually. How are you doing? I think it's actually an important question considering the violence and the threats. How are you doing?
Look, I'm doing all right. Look, it's a tough job, but I'm not going anywhere, and we're going to keep doing what we're doing. I mean, they're not going to stop us from keeping President Trump's promise, make this country safer again, arrest those here illegally, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to keep doing it. We did it. We're going to do it today. We're going to do it tomorrow, especially in sanctuary cities.
Right on. Well, just I think most people do know who you are. Do you want to give a brief overview of your role in immigration enforcement, what your job is?
Well, look, I'm the border czar under President Trump. I report directly to President Trump. He brought me on to do 3 things. Number 1, secure the border. Number 2, oversee the biggest deportation operation this country's seen. And 3, find over, the 300,000 reportedly missing children that the last administration released unvetted sponsors to find those kids. That's the 3 pillars I got my arms wrapped around, and that's what I'm doing every day.
There are a lot of stories that I got a lot of questions. We've got the threats to arrest federal agents, but I'll start here. This viral video from Chicago at the No Kings protest. It's a man saying that people should buy guns and shoot ICE agents. What's terrifying about this, I think people need to understand, is this is not, it appears, some far-left extremist in a basement plotting a terror attack. This appears to be a run-of-the-mill mainstream liberal guy in broad daylight at a massive liberal protest organized by NGOs on a microphone calling for people to kill federal agents. I think it's obvious the DOJ is going to go after him, but I'm curious your thoughts on this degree of escalation, what you think should happen, and what do you think will happen?
Well, look, I said back in March, I said if the hateful rhetoric didn't get tamped down, there was going to be bloodshed. Someone's going to die. Now, I was hoping I'd be wrong, but I wasn't, right? So we had 3 shootings just in Texas alone, where one gunman attacked a Border Patrol training facility. He ended up being killed by the BORTAC agents inside that facility. Wow. Another one, they had a group of people show up at a processing center, detention center outside of Dallas, a group of them, and local law enforcement responded to assist our agents, and he was shot in the neck. Then we had the shooting in Dallas where a sniper intended to shoot ICE agents, shooting into a blacked out van that was transporting detainees and killed detainees. Wow. So, and so unfortunately I was right, and I'll say it again. If the rhetoric doesn't stop, there will be more bloodshed. I've seen this movie before. And I actually thought after these 3 incidents that maybe the hardcore left that is pushing this hateful rhetoric would stop when they see the consequences of this rhetoric. But they haven't. They doubled down. You know, that was evidence this weekend in the No Kings protest. And what the stories about, look, there's always nuts on both sides, but I'm not really concerned as much with the nuts on the left with the rhetoric as I am with members of Congress, governors, mayors, elected members of Congress who want to vilify ICE for enforcing the laws that Congress enacted, right? ICE isn't out there making this up. They're enforcing laws that were acted in the federal statute. They are funded, appropriated by Congress to enforce these laws. So if people don't like what ICE is doing, I've said this a lot of times, go protest Congress, tell them to change the laws. But for any member of Congress, for any mayor or governor who wants to push this hateful rhetoric, I find it hard to believe, because I find it hard to believe that they just continue to do this. Because I would think the number one responsibility of any member of Congress, any mayor, any governor, is protection of the communities. Yeah. And ICE is out there concentrating on public safety threats, the worst first. And the data clearly shows that's exactly what they're doing. Approximately 70% of everybody they arrest is a criminal. So every criminal alien they take out of that neighborhood makes that neighborhood safer. So why can't we be shoulder to shoulder on that and make this country safer?
I'm actually going to quote you on this one from that viral clip you had when being questioned by AOC. First, I'll clarify with respect, the 70% number for most people you're referring to. These are violent criminals who, on top of being illegal immigrants, have committed more serious crimes. But just to throw it back to what you said in that hearing, entering the country illegally is a crime. 100% of these people are being arrested for a crime they committed. And the majority, 70%, you're saying it's more serious crimes than just illegal entry.
Oh, yeah, they're public safety threats, right? Entering the country, you're right, correct. Entering the country illegally is a crime. So, in fact, they've all committed crimes.
100%.
But we're talking a public safety threat. I want to separate the public safety threat because that shows that President Trump's keeping this promise to American people that we're concentrating on the worst first. We're concentrating on those public safety threats who endanger life in our communities. So that is what we're going to keep pushing for. The left can keep saying we're out there arresting. I saw brown and black people. It's just ridiculous because ICE has arrested people from 181 different countries. That's almost every country in the world. We arrest people from Europe. We arrest people from Asia. We arrest people from Central and South America. So it's not about brown and black people. It's about criminals. It's about public safety threats. And look, 70% criminal. Who's the other 30%? Many of them are national security threats. Most national security threats don't have a criminal history because they're laying low to do their dirty deed down the road, right? Yeah. A lot of who we arrested are fugitives. They had due process at great taxpayer expense. A federal judge ordered them deported, but rather than leave, they became a fugitive. You're damn right we're looking for them. We're enforcing laws, and our job is to execute those final orders because the message we're going to send to the whole world: it's not okay to enter this country illegally. It's not okay to commit a crime after you're here illegally. And finally, it's not okay to ignore the federal judge's orders. We're going to look for you and remove you because we want to send that message to the whole world. There are consequences. And one of the reasons we have the most secure border in the history of the nation right now is because of President Trump's executive orders and his leadership. 2, the men and women of Border Patrol who stand on that line enforcing law. And 3, the consequences. Over 1,000 ICE teams are on the streets every day. We're showing the whole world, if you got by, if you get by, we're looking for you. And that stops many, many people from using their entire life savings, put in the hands of criminal cartels to take that dangerous journey. The actions of ICE is one of the reasons we had the most secure border in history of this nation.
You brought up these terror attacks on ICE facilities. Chicago, there were a handful of vehicle rammings. We saw the initial story was rather shocking, where the vehicle was reportedly surrounded. This woman rams the. I'm not sure if it was ICE or CBP, but they got out, returned. They opened fire on the woman. I read reports that Chicago police were instructed to clear the area and not provide assistance. And then we heard that gang members in Chicago are being offered bounties to kill ICE agents, DHS agents, CBP or otherwise, and that Mexican gangs are now increasing that. It feels like with the institutional opposition in Illinois combined with the gang presence that it's getting pretty dangerous for our federal law enforcement agents that, you know, as you mentioned, the duly elected popular president, won the popular vote, has asked these men to carry out the law at the will of the voter, and now they're facing criminal threats and institutional opposition. Do you have concerns about the escalation in Chicago, particularly with these bounties and these threats?
Yes, I do. And every night before I go to sleep, I pray that every man and woman of Border Patrol and ICE go home to their families. I also pray that those they're arresting, no one dies. But the bounties placed on Border Patrol and ICE is an escalation. And look, the criminal cartels in Mexico, they're hurting, right? On the last 4 years, when the border's wide open, they were making record amount of money in smuggling aliens, a record amount of money in sex trafficking of women and children, a record amount of money moving dope across that border, specifically fentanyl that killed 250,000 Americans. Now we have the most secure border in our lifetime. These cartels are hurting. Matter of fact, they're looking at expanding operations in Asia and Europe because they know it's tough here. So look, they're attacking the very people who's affecting their bottom line, the money they're making. And we all know gangs here in the United States help distribute narcotics for the cartels. I mean, the cartels used to just be in charge of smuggling the drugs into the country and go to the cities and be distributed. Now the cartels have a presence in the United States, in every major city in this country, to take over the interior operations of the distribution with those major cities. So yeah, taking out ICE, threatening ICE and Border Patrol agents, they're trying to protect their bottom line, to open up that business opportunity again. But I got news for them. The men and women at ICE and Border Patrol will keep doing this job. They're under a great threat, but you know they're standing up and putting a gun on their hip every day, putting that Kevlar vest on to do what this country needs them to do, enforce the laws and remove these public safety threats. The job's always been dangerous. It's a lot more dangerous now, but I haven't talked to one ICE agent or one Border Patrol agent that wants to stop and go away because of threats. They're doubling down, they're tripling down. They're not letting the cartels decide how this country operates. They're not going to let the cartels threaten them and not enforcing law. They're going to do the right thing. Because I tell you, with 500,000 arrests already, look at how much safer this nation is under President Trump's leadership. Look what he did in Washington, D.C., what he's doing in Memphis, right? What we're doing in Chicago, what we're doing in Portland. I mean, we're making these communities safer again. And the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol, they now get to do their job that they weren't able to do for 4 years. The morale's at an all-time high. No one's going to stop them from doing what they've been to do what they swore an oath to do, and that they believe needs to be done, because these men and women are patriots, and they're going to keep doing this job every day, despite the hate, despite the threats.
I'm from Chicago. I grew up there. I spent my first 23 years there. A couple months in between, I had briefly visited other places, but 23 years in Chicago before I left, and a lot of it had to do with crime and opportunity. I have friends from the city still. I've known my whole life, and I even employed some and moved them out here to work with me on the shows that we do. And I asked them, growing up, we had criminal gangs threatening us, robbing us. It was just the way of life in Chicago. You have gun violence. And I said, what do you think when you see these DHS guys or the National Guard? It's laughter. Is this a joke? For me, I can imagine walking down the street, and I see these videos of these CBP guys walking down the street. I'd be like, howdy, officers. And I'd keep walking, and I wouldn't think twice. If someone asked me, were I still living there, part of the reason why I got away from it, I've been shot at for no reason. Would you prefer federal law enforcement patrolling Chicago to keep it safe? I'd say it's about time the mayor asked for help from the federal government to deal with the 100 years of violence this city's been going through. So what's crazy to me now is we see this political move. These Democrats are acting like it's an invasion, it's evil, it's wrong. They're opposing law enforcement that's actually keeping the city safer. You as a citizen of Chicago have literally nothing to fear as a resident. But what do we end up seeing at the Broadview facility, which is just slightly west of Chicago proper? A judge ruled that these agents, that the ICE facility had to remove the barricades protecting them from violent rioters who have been harassing and attacking law enforcement now for, weeks. I'm curious your thoughts on this institutional level. You mentioned, you got to follow the rules, the orders of these judges, and ICE did. They took the barriers down, even at great risk to themselves. What do you think of the institutional opposition? It feels like they're opposing you for the sake of opposing you, and they're making things less safe.
Well, they are making things less safe, and I think it's a coordinated attack. Look, they do not want President Trump to be successful. every day we're out there. They keep attacking men and women at ICE and Border Patrol and this administration. Bottom line is, for the last 4 years, over 10.5 million illegal aliens came to our southern border. Vast majority released in the United States. Now that President Trump is pulling the curtain back, no, they weren't properly vetted. Look how many criminals they released, public safety threats released, and we're arresting and taking them out. We have a secure border now when they claimed for the last 4 years the border was secure. They want President Trump to fail, because if President Trump succeeds, which he's doing, that pulls the curtain back on the last 4 years of an open border, a lawless immigration system where ICE agents were not allowed to enforce immigration law. Border Patrol agents were not allowed to enforce immigration law on the border. So now we're back to work. We're doing right now what people haven't seen in 4 years. So I think a lot of them are in shock, because now we're actually back there doing what we've done for decades. What we're doing right now is no different than what we've done for decades, other than the problem is so big because of millions of people, many of them criminals they released in the United States. We need the help of DEA and FBI and Secret Service and ATF. We need the help of National Guard to come and protect our federal buildings, to protect our officers, because the problem has been so big. What the American people are seeing right now is that the problem the Biden administration created is so big that President Trump, in a genius move, said, okay, it's going to take all of government to fix this. It's going to take all of government to make this community safe again. That's exactly what you're seeing. But don't let anybody fool you. The pushback on all these politicians on the left, don't let Trump succeed. We can't give him a win. Yep. And that's our number one concern. It's not about the safety and security the communities are responsible for. I've said this many times, and I mean it. They hate Trump more than they care about the community, because they really care about the danger in the communities. You would want all law enforcement working together. No stovepipes. Local law enforcement works for federal law enforcement. I think we learned that after 9/11 that there should be no stovepipes. Law enforcement should work with law enforcement. Let's remember who the terrorists were in 9/11. Many of them were non-criminal aliens that are here unlawfully. So we're going to keep doing this job. President Trump's going to keep his promise, but I don't think they're going to stop. I think they don't want Trump to succeed, and every day he succeeds, it just irritates them, and they're going to push back that much more.
You said you think they hate Trump. They hate Trump more than they care about pushing.
They hate Trump more than they care about the security of the communities. Because if I was a mayor and I got federal law enforcement coming to me and said, look, I don't want you to be an immigration officer. I'm not asking you to be an immigration officer. But we want your law enforcement to work with our law enforcement to remove public safety threats who are here illegally from your neighborhoods, making that neighborhood safe again. Anybody in the right mind will say, yeah, let's make the community safe again. That's the number one responsibility. But they're saying no. Why would they say no about assistance from other law enforcement to make the community safer? This is politics. That's all it is. It is not public safety. This is politics.
I think it's because they don't care about the community. And, you don't have to agree with me, because maybe you'll be a little bit more diplomatic, but having grown up in Chicago, what I found is 100 years of entrenched Democrat political rule. They have never solved the problems of homelessness, poverty, gang violence, gun violence. I had a debate with a liberal about sending in the National Guard, sending in federal law enforcement, which I support. I don't live there anymore, but I do support it. We had an area in Chicago on the south side called the LeClaire Courts, which is a historic gang territory. The city could have dealt with it by asking the feds, bringing the National Guard, securing the community for those that were not criminals, which was 99%. You know what they did instead? They bulldozed all their homes and told them, don't worry, we'll rebuild it, and never did. That was the policy of Democrats. So forgive me if I'm being a little bit more political. I think the attitude of these politicians is extract what you can, trick as many people into supporting you. If it really was about helping keep the community safe, if they cared in any way, they would have called Trump the moment he got in office and said, we are ready and waiting for your assistance to help us with this crime.
Look, I don't think we disagree one another. You bring a different perspective, but me being a cop since 1983, I find it hard to believe the law enforcement don't want to work with law enforcement. That's not the world I grew up in. That's not the country I grew up in.
They're barred from doing it.
And I think the line officers. When last time I was in Chicago, we're doing operations, and we stopped at a couple of precincts to do a nature call. And every uniform walked up to me, shook my hand, and thanked me for being there. The frontline officers, I think, they want to do the right thing. They're happy we're there. It's the politicians. It's the folks that have an agenda. And I think it's an anti-Trump agenda. But I'm not going to disagree with you about do the local politicians really care about the neighborhood? You bring a different perspective than that. As a career cop, though, I just can't believe people aren't letting cops work with cops. It's not the world I grew up in.
You know what I think? I think in Chicago especially, the issues, they're wedge issues they can use to keep getting elected by claiming they're the only ones who can solve it. But one thing we just saw is a U.S. District Court judge ruled that ICE agents can be arrested if you apprehend what's called the collateral arrests. They find migrants at courthouses, or illegal immigrants, I should say. They said they could actually arrest ICE agents for trying to capture these people, which this seems crazy. It's a judge basically saying there's a category of crime which you can't arrest someone for. I mean, that's insane to threaten ICE agents with arrests. What is going on with these arrests at or around courthouses, and what do you think of this judge's ruling?
Look, one of the safest places to arrest an illegal alien is inside a courthouse, because you got to get past the magnetometers. You get searched before you go in the courthouse. What a safer place to arrest a public safety threat than a courthouse, right? And look, I've been in courthouses throughout my career. I've been in courthouses where I watched a father being taken into custody for not paying child support. Arrest right in the courthouse because he hasn't paid child support in 6 months. Judge says take him into custody. So that's okay to arrest a father for not paying, child support, which I support. But it's not okay to arrest a public safety threat in the same type of courtroom situation. So no, I think the judge's order, of course, federal law always trumps local law. Good luck with that. ICE is going to enforce the laws, again, enacted by Congress, and they're not going to apologize for doing it. So I'll let DOJ fight that, and when I'm sure that ruling is going to be appealed, and we'll win that appeal because they can't simply, tell federal law enforcement officers what they can and can't do. So, we'll see that get appealed, and we'll win the appeal. But I think courtroom arrest makes sense because it's a safe place, safer for the officer, safer for the community, and safer for the alien. For the same reason, I want access to jails, right? If these sanctuary cities don't give us access to the jails, where it'd be safer for the community, safer for the alien, safer for the officer to arrest somebody in the safety and security of public jail where he doesn't have weapons. And instead, they want to release him in the public, which is, again, creates a public safety issue. And it's much more dangerous for the officer, much more dangerous for the alien themselves, because anything can happen on a street arrest. So I support what ICE is doing in the courthouse, and we're going to continue to do it.
This is where, I'll get a little darker and more serious. There's a question about what's going to happen because we've seen a chain of events. Terror attacks on ICE facilities, shooting law enforcement, shooting into vehicles. We know there is motive and intent from these extremists. Now we've seen at this No Kings protest what appears to be some run-of-the-mill liberal advocating people buy guns to shoot ICE agents. We then have a judge ruling that the ICE facility in Broadview, just outside of Chicago, can't have barriers to protect itself. In Portland, when they put wood up on their windows to protect the glass, they got a zoning violation from the city. I fear that there is, whether intentional or otherwise, a combination of factors from extremism bubbling up on the left, as well as the courts obstructing federal law enforcement's ability to protect themselves, which is leading us to a point where there will be an escalation of terror attacks on federal law enforcement, like the Broadview facility being a very good example of the worst. I mean, in Texas, as you already pointed out, they were shooting at this facility. Now there's a judge saying that in Illinois, where there's riots, they can't protect themselves with these barricades. I think escalation is all but guaranteed, and I don't know how we stop it. Have you guys thought about how to deal with this stuff? I know it's sort of getting into other territories, Trump with the National Guard, but this has me genuinely concerned for the safety of our law enforcement and the community in general.
Well, I think President Trump's addressing it in several ways. First of all, Pam Bondi's a great attorney general. She's going to litigate. She said it herself. These radical judges making decisions that don't consider public safety. They're more political decisions than decisions made on federal law or how the statute reads. But we got some radical judges, and Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice are taking them on. They're appealing these cases, but that takes a while, like you said. So we're trying to plug holes until then. What are we doing? We're hardening our facilities to put more security features in the facilities. And you're right, some of the barriers had to be taken down. But that's one of the main reasons President Trump sent in National Guard. National Guard is not going there to enforce immigration law. They're going there to protect our facilities and protect our officers. So together with the DHS and DOJ and the White House here, we're trying to harden the facilities. We're sending more resources to add a protective layer. Teams are big enough. We just don't have 1 or 2 guys going out in the public. The rest of them, we send a whole team that can not only in effect an arrest, but while that arrest is being effected, you got officers in the background watching to make sure these officers are safe and looking at a 360 perimeter, make sure the operation goes successfully. So we're stepping up our game to not only protect the officers, but to also send a message we're not stopping. So I think between DOJ, DHS, and White House, we're trying to deal with this as quick as we can. But the bottom line is DOJ needs to get these appeals on calendar as soon as possible, because I truly believe, look, I'm not a lawyer, but I can read. And I think the vast majority, if not all of them, will be overturned by the appellate court or the Supreme Court. We just got to make sure we push that agenda quickly.
So I guess multi-part question. How many illegal immigrants I've seen wild estimates for how many illegal immigrants are currently in the country. Is it the mission of ICE and CBP to deport all criminal illegal immigrants, just illegal immigrants in general? And do you think you will succeed if that is the criteria for the mission?
Well, we're going to succeed. We already are succeeding. It looks like we'll surpass 600,000 removals the first year of Trump, and that beats the record by 200,000. But look, how will we succeed? Every criminal threat we take out of the communities and deport, every national security threat we take out of the community and deport makes this country safer. I don't have a number, but I said this from day one. We're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats, and the data shows we're doing it 70% of the time because they're the biggest concern, right? Because they're threats. But if you're in the country legally, you're not off the table. You've never been off the table. You never will be off the table, because it's not okay to be in this country illegally. It's not okay to cross that border illegally. It is a crime. And the message we can't send to the whole world is, enter the country legally, it's a crime, but don't worry about it. Show up in court or don't show up in court, get an order removal, don't worry about it. Unless you commit another crime, no one's looking for you. If that's the message we send to the entire world, you're never going to fix this problem. When the next administration comes, they're going to keep coming. Yeah. We got to send a message of consequences. We need to enforce the law. And that's why we're, the CBP home app, there's several thousand removals there already. If you're in the country legally, leave on your own. Give yourself an opportunity in the future to come back under a legal program, visitor's visa, tourist visa, a work authorization, or H-1B, H-2A, whatever. Make yourself available to come back, because we have to formally deport you, find you, and formally remove you. There's a statutory bar in federal statute, anywhere from 5 years to never coming back. So I've said it from day one, and I mean it. If you're in the country legally, you're not off the table. Just because you prioritize a subset doesn't mean you forget about everybody else.
Just last question. I don't know. This might be a little outside of your wheelhouse, but there are concerns, and have been for some time, about illegal immigrants either voting accidentally, as some might argue, about regardless, voting illegally, affecting the outcome of elections, as well as the illegal immigrant population creating additional congressional seats largely in these sanctuary citizen states. Do you think that, and again, I don't know, maybe it's not your wheels, but is there a potential for these illegal immigrants to affect the midterm elections or our elections in general moving forward?
Look, I think there's been many examples of illegal aliens voting in elections, and it's just a stone cold fact. We've uncovered some of it. But you hit on a bigger subject. As I said for a long time, why did the Biden administration release millions of people in the United States when federal law clearly says if you enter a country illegally without proper documentation, you shall be detained? So why weren't they detained? When we had thousands of empty ICE beds, already paid for about $127 a night, thousands of beds sitting empty, why didn't they detain them? Why did they detain them in accordance with federal law? Why did they release them in NGOs? Well, I'll tell you why. Because if they detain them in an ICE facility, they get a hearing within 36, 37 days, somewhere around there. 90% will lose their case because they simply don't qualify for asylum. They get sent home. That's not what they wanted. They know, based on 10 years of court data, nearly 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at their southern border end up with order removal. So they know if they detain them, 9 out of 10 will be deported. However, if they release them, they get put on what they call the non-detained docket. It takes years. So what are they hoping for? Millions of people they release to sanctuary cities do two things. Number one, maybe a Democratic administration comes in before they have hearings and get order removed, give an amnesty. Now you got millions of what they think future Democratic voters. But on the other hand, when President Biden signed all these executive orders, killing everything we did to create the most secure border on Trump 45, they also overturned the Trump census rule where millions of people in these sanctuary cities now be counted, which results in more seats in the House for the Dems. I truly believe they opened the border up and didn't detain this population because they saw a future political benefit.
Wow. I really do appreciate you joining me and having a discussion. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
That's it. Just a message that ICE is going to quit doing what they're doing. God bless the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol. And if your listeners see one of them out there, shake their hand. Thank them for doing a very dangerous job and making this country safe again. They deserve it. They get so much hate. It'd be nice for people, the American public out there, just say, hey, thank you for what you do. We appreciate you.
Tom Homan, thank you so much for joining me and providing those insights. We look forward to having you in the future.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Take care. Have a good one. That was, of course, the great Tom Homan discussing what they're currently working on and those insights. And I want to stress something. I've said it before. I'll say it now. You know, look, I've had complaints about bad cops and law enforcement and all that, but I want to stress who we are, where we are this past election. And I'll give you a quick bit before we wrap up. We had an election in 2024. Immigration was the either number one or number two concern. We asked President Donald Trump, take immigration enforcement seriously because Biden went nuts. Well, he is. And we got these guys. Let me show you this. This is, I don't think this is National Guard. I see these guys. This is federal officers outside in Portland, Oregon. You know what I think when I see these guys? I think these guys are out here working for me because I asked them to. I see these guys in uniforms. I see them in armor. I see them wearing masks. I see them facing threats from lunatics. And the reality is, I said, Trump, I want you to find a few good men, ask them to go and enforce the laws passed by Congress that we as the American people want to see enforced. And Trump said, you got it. You vote for me, I'll make that happen. So we did. We voted for Trump. He won the popular vote. These men then volunteered and said, I will put myself in harm's way at the request of the American voter, at my request. So I have tremendous respect for these guys out there. I've been on the ground. I've been tear gassed. I get it. But there is a request we make of law enforcement when we vote, and that is to keep the community safe and enforce the law. And that means it's not always personal, and there are bad cops. Sometimes you might get caught up sometimes, but that's never the intention. The left says you're a bootlicker if you defend cops. I mean, maybe corrupt cops, but I ain't nicking nobody's boot. I asked these guys to be here. So when I say, I have a request of you, good sir, and they say, you got it, strap up, put on the armor, and go outside, what do I see? A bunch of guys out there on the streets taking risks to themselves because I asked them to, and you did too. Shout out to our federal law enforcement doing this dangerous job, facing down these extremist threats. I hope you guys stay safe, and I really do appreciate what you're doing at the request of the American democracy. How about that? Smash the like button, my friends. Share the show with everyone you know. I believe we've got Devory Darkins gearing up. He's going live right now. We're going to send you on your way. Man, Devory is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen his show, you got to see it. This guy is absolutely amazing. Big fan of the work that he's doing. We'll confirm that, Ray. Follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Join us at the DC Comedy Loft for the Culture War Live. We're going to be there November 8th. We postponed it because of the No Kings protest. We pushed it back, but seats go quick. Preferred seating usually evaporates in like the first weekend of sales. And if you want to get there and hang out, we're going to be debating modern dating with Emily Saves America, Myron Gaines, Alex Stein, myself, and we'll be joined by Brian Shapiro, liberal guy, to have this debate. It's fun, always funny. We hope to see you there. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all tonight for Timcast IRL, 8 p.m.